Hello everyone. So, as some of you know, I like doing voices when I read Joe's stories, and I had some requests to hear some of the voices. Some of you have heard my golden voice already, but as we are all eventually going to be stuck indoors, I said I would actually do a full story for your and your children's entertainment. So I thought I would start with David Walliams and the Ice Monster. And when I go through these, I assign a voice to all of the characters in it, just something I make up and what I think they would sound like. So I shall begin. I hope you enjoy it. So, here we go. The year is 1899 and we're in Victorian London. Meet the characters in the story. There you go. So we have Elsie, a homeless orphan who lives on the streets of London. You'll hear her voice eventually. Dottie is the cleaning lady at the Natural History Museum. She is as daft as her brushes. Private Thomas is Dottie's boyfriend, the shortest soldier who ever served in the British Army. His fellow soldiers called him Titch. He is now retired and lives at the Royal Hospital, Chelsea, making him a Chelsea pensioner. On the next page we have, hope you can see this, Mrs. Curdle, the nasty old boot who runs Wormley Hall, home for unwanted children. Mr. Clout is the brute of a security guard at the museum, infamous for his hobnail boots. Commissioner Barker is the fearsome head of the London Metropolitan Police, famous for his very tiny moustache. Then we have many years ago, the professor was the top scientist at the museum, till one of his experiments went catastrophically wrong. Lady Buckshot is an aristocratic big game hunter. Across Africa, she shoots elephants, giraffes and lions and brings their bodies back to the museum to be stuffed and put on display. Next page, we have the Admiral, the only sailor to live at the hospital. He was thrown out of the old sailors' home for being drunk and disorderly, which right now sounds like quite a good idea. The Colonel and the Brigadier are also Chelsea pensioners. The one-eyed Sergeant Major is in charge of everything and everyone that comes in and out of the hospital, and don't you forget it. All the Chelsea pensioners are overseen by the Royal Hospital's formidable matron. The next page we have Queen Victoria, the ruler of the British Empire. In 1899 she had been on the throne for what was the longest reign in British history, a staggering 62 years. Sir Ray Lancaster is the museum's portly director. The sandwich board man roams the streets trying to convince everyone that the end is nigh, which quite possibly could be true right now. The captain is in charge of what was, in 1899, one of the Royal Navy's most modern warships, HMS Argonaut. History lesson for you as well as a story. On the next page we have the Sticky Fingers gang. You zoom in on that lot. We've got Joseph, Zoe, Nellie, Bella, Freya, Grace, George, Lottie, Asia, Athena, Sanaya and Rihanna. And on the last, but not least, of the characters, everyone's favourite, Raj. The first has its own confectionery emporium or sweet shop trolley. And last but not least, the star of the story is the ice monster itself, a woolly mammoth that died 10,000 years ago. The lifeless animal was discovered by Arctic explorers, perfectly preserved in the ice. There you go. On the next page, we have, actually I'm going to get rid of that because it's doing my nut in, a map of London for you all to peruse. Can you see that? Various different landmarks for those who have been to London, including Buckingham Palace. There's the Thames, Royal Chelsea Hospital, Westminster Abbey, Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, 10 Downing Street, HMS Victory, and so on and so forth. And so we shall begin. Part 1, London, 1899, when the Thames froze over. It didn't actually, but we'll just pretend it did. Chapter 1, Cockroaches for Breakfast. One bleak night, in the back streets of London, a tiny baby was left on the steps of an orphanage. There was no note, no name, no clue as to who this little person was. Just the potato sack in which she was wrapped, as snow fell around her. In Victorian times, it was not uncommon for unborn babies to be abandoned outside orphanages, hospitals, or even the homes of upper-class folk. Their poor, desperate mothers hoped their children would be taken in and given a better life than their birth families could provide. However, it was hard to imagine a worse start in life for this baby than at Wormley Hall, home for the unwanted children. There you go, there's a picture. 26 orphans lived there, all crammed into a room that should have slept 8 at the absolute most. The children were locked up, starved and beaten. On top of that, they were forced to work day and night. They had to assemble gentlemen's pocket watches from tiny pieces until they went blind. All the children were painfully thin, with filthy rags for clothes. The orphans' faces were black with soot, so all you could see in the gloom were their hopeful little eyes. And there we go, we've got the names of all the children at the orphanage. There's Agatha, Bessie, Clarence, Dorothea, Elsie, Felix, Gertrude, Humphrey, Iris, Joe, Kenneth, Lillian, Mabel, Nancy, Olive, Percival, Queenie, Rupert, Stanley, Theodore, Ursula, Violet, Wilf, not our dog, Sandra, Yorick, and Zachary. When a new baby arrived at the orphanage, all the older children would come up with a name for him. They liked to work their way through the alphabet so the names would be as different as possible. The night the baby in the potato sack was left on the steps, they had reached E. If she had been found the day before, she might have been called Doris. A day later, she would have been a Frank. Instead, she was named Elsie. This prison of an orphanage was run by an evil old boot named Mrs. Curdle. Her face was usually fixed in a permanent grimace, and she was covered from head to toe in warts. She had so many warts, even her warts had warts. The only thing that made her smile was the sound of children sobbing. Mrs. Curdle would scoff all the food donated for the orphans, so the children in her care had to eat cockroaches for breakfast, lunch and dinner. "Creepy crawlies are good for you," she would chuckle. If any of the orphans spoke after candles out, she would stuff one of her pus-sodden old stockings in their mouth. They would have to keep it there for a week. "That'll keep you quiet, you windy wallet." When the children were sleeping on the cold stone floor, she would put wriggly worms down the backs of their shirts. They would wake up screaming, "Ah! Ah, hornswoggler." Mrs. Curdle would sneeze over the orphans, "Achoo!" and blow her nose on their hair. "Gongazula." A weekly bath involved her dunking the orphans one by one into a barrel full of maggots. "The maggots will nibble off the dirt, you muck snipes," Mrs. Curdle would snigger. To dry off afterwards, she would peg the children to the washing line by their ears. Twang! Once, when Elsie was found with a pet rat in her pocket that she had befriended, Mrs. Curdle used it as a ball in a game of cricket. Thud! Eek! Whiz! How's that? If she felt one of the orphans had given her a funny look, Mrs. Curdle would poke them in the eye with her dirty, stubby finger. "Ouch! Take that, gib-face!" As a special treat at Christmas, the orphans would line up for their present, a whack on the bottom with the bumper book of carols. Bash! "Merry Christmas, child!" Mrs. Curdle would exclaim with glee on each strike. Elsie endured 10 long, hard years at Wormley Hall. The only thing that kept her going was the dream that one day her ma would magically appear and whisk her away. But she never did. As the girl grew up, she would invent more and more incredible stories about her. Perhaps her ma was a jungle explorer, or an acrobat with a travelling circus. Even better, a lady pirate off having adventures on the high seas. Every night, Elsie would make up bedtime stories for her fellow orphans. Over time, the girl became a magnificent storyteller. She had all the other children in the palm of her grubby little hand. Then Ma found herself in a dark, dark place. It was a huge belly of a blue whale. Ma escaped from a tribe of cannibals, which wasn't easy as they'd already gobbled up and left her leg. Boom! Ma had thrown a bomb into the Thames just in time, so no one was killed. It was all in a day's work for the secret agent. The end. When that night's story finished, the other orphans would cry out, "Another! We don't want to go to sleep yet. Please, Elsie, just one more." One night the children cheered so much at Elsie's story that they woke up Mrs. Curdle. "No more stories, you nasty little beasts," raged the woman, beating Elsie with a broomstick on every word. The pus and stocking she stuffed in the girl's mouth only half muffled her screams. "Ah, ah, ah!" The beating was so severe that Elsie wasn't sure she was going to survive. Her little body was black and blue with bruises, and the girl knew she had to escape or die. Chapter 2. Monkey Feet. Elsie loved all the rats and pigeons that would find their way inside Wormley Hall. She had any food, she would share it with them and tend to their broken wings and legs. In return, they would snuggle up to her, which made her feel less lonely. In her heart, Elsie felt a deep connection to these animals that Mrs. Curdle called vermin. To her, they were little creatures all alone in the world, just like her. There you go, a picture of her feeding them. Elsie noticed how the rats got into the orphanage by scuttling along a leaky pipe that came down from the ceiling. One thing that set Elsie apart from her fellow orphans was her feet. Elsie didn't have ordinary feet, she had monkey feet. The advantage of having long, thick toes that could grip like fingers was that it made climbing easy peasy. So one night, when everyone else was asleep, Elsie scaled the pipe to see where the rats scrambled in. Just as she had thought. There was a small rat-sized hole at the top of the wall. After that, every night after candles out, Elsie scaled the pipe using her monkey feet. Onto the top, she would scrape away at the brickwork with her fingernails. Night after night, she scraped and scraped, making the hole bigger and bigger and bigger. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Eventually, the hole was just large enough for Elsie to squeeze her tiny, underfed body through it. However, she couldn't leave Wormley Hall without saying goodbye to her 25 friends. "Wake up!" she called softly. Little eyes began to appear out of the dark. "I'm going to run away tonight. Who's coming with me?" Silence. "I said, who's coming with me?" There were murmurs, "I'm too scared," and "Curd'll kill us," and "they'll catch us and beat us to death." The little one of the lot was named Nancy. She looked up to Elsie like she was a big sister. Nancy whispered, "Where are you going?" "I dunno," replied the girl. "Anywhere but here." "Please don't forget about us." "Never." "Promise?" "I promise," said Elsie. "I'll see you all again one day, I know it." "I'm going to miss your stories," said another orphan, Felix. "Me too," added Percival. "Next time I see you, I'll tell you the greatest story of all." "Good luck, Elsie," said Nancy. "You'll always be here," replied Elsie, patting her chest. The girl gave one last shimmy up the pipe with her monkey feet. She squeezed herself through the hole in the wall, and with one final wriggle, she was gone. Chapter 3. Pong. Elsie ran and ran and ran as fast as she possibly could. She didn't dare look back. She was free but alone, and now she had to fend for herself in the streets of London. Even though she'd never been outside the orphanage before, the big city was a scary place, especially for a little girl. Danger lurked in every corner. Soon enough, though, Elsie taught herself how to steal food from the market stalls. As for a bed, she found an old tin bath to sleep in and used old newspapers as sheets. In her mind, Elsie pretended that it was a grand four-poster bed fit for a queen. With no home or family, Elsie was what was known as an urchin. Victorian London was teeming with them. Elsie the urchin. There you go. Pong. Elsie had never, ever had a proper bath. Maggot baths only make you dirtier. Jumper that were more hole than jumper should really just be called a hole. No shoes. 2 small trousers, thick with grime, filthy monkey feet, too big a coat, borrowed from a washing line, grubby face, dirty hands, never washed hair that looked like a mop. Elsie didn't look much like a hero. However, as you will soon discover, heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Chapter 4. Expert Thief. Read all about it! Ice monster found in Arctic! Living on the streets of London had its advantages. You slept under the stars. You ate all the fresh fruit and vegetables you could swipe. Best of all, you were the first to know about everything. News spread fast, and this was big news. Having never been to school, Elsie couldn't read or write. However, the newspaper sellers would holler the headlines to passers-by. The Evening Standard. Find of the century. Ice monster discovered the North Pole. London Chronicle. Monster found buried in the ice. History made. This long dead ice monster dug up. Ice monster frozen solid. 10,000 year old, says experts. Could this be true? A real life monster? 10,000 years old too? Elsie was old enough to know that monsters weren't real, and young enough to believe that they might just be. The girl had just swiped an apple off a market stall for her breakfast. Munching contentedly, she wove her way through the march of top-hatted gentlemen, heading for work, until she reached the newspaper stand. Get lost, you little thief! Shouted the newspaper seller. He whacked the girl on the back of her head with a rolled-up copy of the Times. Thwack! You got whacked by grown-ups every day if you were an urchin. You were the lowest of the low. At least it made a welcome change from being battered with a broomstick at Wormley Hall. I want to look, pleaded Elsie. These papers not for looking at. These for buying. Now scram before I give you a kick where the sun don't shine. Not being a fan of her boot up the bottom, Elsie smiled at the man and ambled off down the street. She turned into an alley then, reached into the back of her grubby trousers and pulled out a copy of the Times. The girl had become an expert thief. There were big, bold black letters on the front page. Elsie knew these spelled out words, but it all looked like a jumble to her. The picture underneath did speak to her, though. It was of a peculiar creature that looked like an elephant. Once she poked her head through the flap in the circus tent to get a free show, and had seen an elephant performing tricks. However, this elephant was covered in thick hair, and its tusks were long and curved. It was encased in a huge block of ice, and a number of Arctic explorers were standing around it looking proud. Despite the creature's bizarre appearance, Elsie found it hard to think of the poor thing as a monster. Monsters you were scared of. This animal you wanted to hug. It looked a great deal smaller than the elephant she'd seen at the circus. Perhaps it was a baby. Despite having been dead for thousands of years, it still looked lost and alone. An orphan, whispered Elsie to herself. Just like me. Chapter 5. Universe of Wonder. As an urchin, Elsie was always on the outside looking in. Every day she would see a whole other London whirling round her. Horse-drawn carriages speeding down the street, children in uniform marching off to school, lords and ladies stepping over her as they left the Royal Opera House. Elsie's brain was forever buzzing with questions. Where was everyone going to at such a pace? What did those scrumptious-looking cakes in the bakery window actually taste like? And what was inside all those magnificent buildings? One day, the girl decided to step out of her world and into the other. Elsie was standing in front of the most magnificent building of all, the Natural History Museum. When she tried to walk in, she was immediately thrown out by the hobnailed booted brute of a security guard, Mr. Clout. I don't want no trouble from filthy beggars like you, he shouted as he hurled her down the street. There's Mr. Clout. Elsie was not one to give up that easily, so she sneaked in behind a gaggle of top-hatted gentlemen. At once the girl marvelled at this universe of wonder. The museum was a treasure trove of life-size models of whales, stuffed animals, dinosaur bones, meteorites, precious stones, dusty old books full of beautiful pictures of animals from far-off lands, wood carvings of prehistoric men, and floor-to-ceiling paintings of creatures that had long since become extinct. Soon she was sneaking into the museum every single day. Elsie couldn't read, but she earwigged on the guides and soon became something of an expert. So when she saw a picture of the ice monster on the front page of the newspaper, she knew instantly that it was, in fact, a woolly mammoth. Elsie learned that these creatures had lived during the Ice Age, when saber-toothed tigers, giant bears, sloths, and even beavers stalked the earth. And the bears like the Tyrannosaurus, a bird bigger than a person, dark in the skies. Elsie was desperate to follow the story of the ice monster, so every morning she swiped another newspaper to search for news of the creature. Weeks passed, and then one day she spotted a jumble of letters she recognised on the front page of a newspaper. They looked exactly like the ones she had seen on the side of her favourite building. Elsie knew she had to meet it. The ice monster was coming to the Natural History Museum. Chapter 6. Giant Ghosts. Soon after the ice monster was found, London was plunged into the cruelest of winters. A bitter wind brought a flurry of snow. Before long, the entire city was hushed by a thick covering of white. The River Thames froze over. In this kind of weather, homeless children like Elsie perished in doorways. They would go to sleep and never wake up, to be found at dawn with a dusting of frost on their faces. Poor Elsie was huddling in her tin bath under a pile of newspapers trying to keep warm. She looked at her hands. They were shaking with the cold and turning blue. The girl almost missed Wormley Hall. Almost, but not quite. Elsie sneaked into the Natural History Museum at closing time, behind a troop of nuns, so the security guard wouldn't see her. Once inside, she scuttered along the long corridors, past the dinosaur bones hanging on wires that looked like giant ghosts, and eventually found an unlocked cupboard. She crept inside and closed the door. It was a cleaning cupboard, and too small in which to sleep lying down. So she slept standing up, with her head nestled between some mops. She looked not unlike a mop, as skinny as a rake with a shock of tangled hair on top. Elsie was sure no one would find her in there, but she was wrong. Very early the next morning before dawn, Elsie was woken by a cleaning lady. Opening the cupboard door, the woman yawned and grabbed the first mop she could find. It was actually Elsie. "Ah!" screamed the lady. "Ah!" screamed the girl. Elsie was being held by the neck. "You're not a mop." "No, I'm a girl." "What are you doing in my cleaning cupboard?" "I was sleeping. I didn't want to die of the cold." "No, you don't want to do that." Elsie gulped. "Are you going to tell on me, missus?" The cleaning lady did the last thing the girl was expecting. She smiled. Most of the time, grown-ups treated urchins like Elsie with cruelty. Not this lady. She was different. "Nah, you're not going to tell on me, are you?" asked the lady. "Tell on you?" replied the girl. Elsie was befuddled. "I could lose my job over this." No, never. I'm not a snitch." "Thank goodness for that. Me neither. What's your name?" "Elsie." "I'm Dotty. Dotty by name, and I'm told Dotty by nature. Are you a child?" The girl was confused. She thought that was obvious. "Yes." I only ask because you're taller than me gentleman friend." "How tall is he?" "Titch is shorter than you. That ain't his real name. That's the name all the other soldiers give him." "How old is he?" 73. "Has he shrunk?" "No, God made him that way." Dotty pulled out a dog-eared photograph from her pocket. "Here's Titch." There he is. Elsie looked at the picture. It must have been taken a while ago, as it showed a young soldier in uniform holding a gun that was taller than him. "He is small," replied the girl. "He's bigger in real life than in a photograph." "I guess that," replied Elsie. "He's my hero," said Dotty as she kissed the picture before putting it back in her pocket. "So I bet you're hungry." The girl nodded her head. "Ravenous." Elsie was always so hungry her tummy hurt. Dotty reached into another pocket. "Here, have me packed lunch. Bread and dripping." Smiling, Elsie took the food. She tore a crust of bread into halves and handed a piece back to the lady. Both were touched by the kindness of the other. Elsie devoured her half greedily. It was only bread and dripping, but to her it was the nectar of gods. "Where's your mum and dad, little one?" "Dunno, never met him." "Orphan then, are you?" "Suppose so." Poor thing. No point feeling sorry for myself. I'll get on with it. At that moment, they both heard footsteps clomping down the corridor. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. The lady lifted her finger to her lips to mime, "Don't say a word," and hurriedly shut the door. Chapter 7. A Likely Story. Elsie stayed as still and quiet as she possibly could, in the cleaning cupboard. Through the door she could hear the grown-ups arguing. "Who are you talking to, Dotty?" boomed a voice. "Just me mops and brushes, Mr. Clout, sir," replied Dotty. "A likely story, Dotty," the man scoffed. "As a museum's head of security, I order you open that door." "I can't." "What do you mean you can't?" "My hands are gone all floppy." "What do you mean your hands have gone all floppy?" "Too much mopping." "Well, I'll open it then." "I wouldn't if I were you." "Why?" "I just blew off in there." "You did what?" "I did a bottom burp in the cupboard so all the stuffed animals wouldn't have to smell it. It's a really stinky one. It would have peeled the paint off the walls." "That doesn't explain why you were talking." "I was talking to my own bottom." "You were talking to your own bottom?" "Giving it a jolly good turning off, Mr. Clout, sir." Elsie had to put her hand over her mouth to stop herself from laughing. This lady really was Dotty. "I've never heard so much nonsense in all my life," thundered Clout. "Now step aside, woman, or I will be forced to use force." The girl heard a slight scuffle. "Oof! Ouch! Get off me foot!" At last she could. As fast as she could, Elsie nestled herself in behind the mops and brushes. The door swung open. Chapter 8. The Unnatural History Museum. Clout peered inside the dark and dingy cleaning cupboard. His hulking frame all but filled up the doorway. He had huge hobnailed boots on his feet, so polished you could eat your dinner off them. The man covered his nose. "I don't know freak in here." That was Elsie's pong. "Tell it to my bottom," replied Dotty. Just then something caught the man's eye among the mops and brushes. "What's this?" he said, pointing at the girl's hair poking out. "That?" asked Dotty innocently. "Yes, that." "Oh, that's one of my new real hair mops." "Real hair mop?" asked Clout. "Yeah, it's great for those areas me everyday mops can't reach, like between the dinosaur toes bones." "I don't think I can bear that stink a moment longer," said the man, his eyes watering. "I did warn you, Mr. Clout, sir. Me blow-offs are really something." "They should have their own museum," mused Clout. "The Unnatural History Museum." "Very good, Miss Clout, sir," she said as she slammed the door. "It's always lovely talking to you, but if you would excuse me, I need to give the dodo eggs a good spit and polish." "Dotty?" "Yes?" "You need to get something for that bottom of yours." "I'll invest it in a cork." "Then we'll have to wear tin helmets in case you pop." "That's a good point, Mr. Clout. I will try and think of something." "Get to work." "You get to work." "I can't get to work until you get to work." "Well, you telling me to get to work is stopping me from getting to work." "Get to work," thundered the man. Dotty picked up her mop and began cleaning the floor. On purpose, she ran the dirty mop over his highly polished hobnailed boots. "Me boots!" he cried. "Oh, sorry." "Stupid old hag." "They're silly old, please, Mr. Clout." "I need to get these boots sparkling for the visitors." "Yes, that's what they all come to the Natural History Museum, Miss Clout, sir. They don't come to see the dinosaur bones, aren't they? They just want to see their own face reflected in your boots. You better buff them up good and proper." Clout gave the cleaning lady a filthy look before marching off down the corridor to make someone else's life a misery. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. After a few moments, Dotty opened the cupboard door. "Whew," said Elsie. "That was close." "If I know Mr. Clout, he'll be back." "I'd better get out of here." "You sure you'll be all right?" "Don't worry, I'll find somewhere else to hide tonight." "If you're sure." "I'm sure." "Throat will be trickling in soon. Now would be a good time to make a swift exit." "I've got to ask you something." "Yes, dearie." "Why have you been so kind to me?" asked Elsie. "Why not?" came the simple answer. The pair shared a smile before the girl shuffled off down the long corridor. "Take care, little one," called out the cleaning lady after her. "And please come back and see me very soon." "I will," replied Elsie. And she did. And that will conclude for today. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, let me know and I will do more. If you didn't, then you better tell me that too. Thank you very much and goodbye.